Next, a new court system for war veterans who get into trouble with the law. NewsHour correspondent Tom Bearden reports.
Nick Gray was a sergeant with the 1st Infantry Division based at Fort Riley, Kansas. He was part of the Iraq troop surge in February 2007.
We're just building COPS, which are the combat outposts, which is really what the surge was all about, was taking small neighborhoods and building little bases in them that were troubled, and then clearing and maintaining as well.
He returned to the States that fall, left the Army when his time was up, and moved to Colorado Springs to start a business. One night last October, he was on the phone talking with a buddy who served with him in Baghdad.
We were just kind of talking about our experiences, about our time over there, and that's pretty much the last thing that I remember. The next thing that I recall is coming to an orange jumpsuit in county jail, charged with 2 felonies.
Gray, who suffers from PTSD, apparently had a flashback and went on a rampage in his neighborhood, attacking a parked car, kicking in a neighbor's door, threatening the couple inside.
I was on mission in my neighborhood, and I was clearing houses.
What do you mean?
Essentially, clearing a house is when you go ahead and you bust in the front door or side door, and you go inside to ensure that there's no, in this case, insurgents in there to go ahead and be able to harm you or your fellow soldiers as well.
So you thought you were back in Iraq?
I thought I was back in Iraq, yes.
Gray could have gotten 3 to 5 years in jail for the 2 felonies, but thanks to a new pilot program in Colorado Springs, he was instead tried in a special veterans court.
The Honorable Ronald Crowder presiding.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Defendants in this experimental court plead guilty to their crimes and agree to a strict probation, which includes mental health counseling, addiction treatment if needed, and monthly court appearances.
And what have you been doing recently?
There's a lot of intensive therapy, a lot of one-on-one therapy. So, I mean, it was very beneficial to me.
Sheila McAteer has acted as a public defender for many of these veterans.
For the first time ever in my career, my 22 years as being a public defender, I am now a strong part of a team that is advocating treatment over punishment. And you don't see that in the criminal system. Most of the time everybody advocates punishment for your wrongdoing.
There are more than 20 veterans courts around the country. The first was started in Buffalo, New York 2 years ago. Like drug courts that began in the 1980s, they're based on the idea of treating defendants for underlying problems in order to prevent future criminal activity. Dan May is the district attorney in Colorado Springs.
This is for the person that hasn't done a spectacular crime, but they've done some crime, and it isn't in their nature, and it may be directly related back to PTSD or the closed head injuries. And before, what we were doing is just sending them on probation, not treating that, and then they do another crime, and it may even escalate. What we're excited about with this is now when we put them on probation, we can actually put them in treatment programs that really get down to what's causing them to act this way.
How do you plead to the charge of theft?
Guilty, Your Honor. Veterans courts handle both misdemeanor charges like DUIs, drug possession, and theft, as well as felonies, including assaults and other violent crimes. But there is a limit.
I'm being very cautious in what I take in. If you've done a murder, if you've done an attempted murder, if you've done a rape, if you're sexual assaulting kids, some of that isn't even going to be related to PTSD, quite frankly. But that's just too spectacular to be in this program.
Some people argue, however, that veterans courts should be helping more violent offenders, especially in cases like domestic abuse. Robert Alvarez is a former Marine and a psychologist who works with wounded war vets. One of his current clients is a decorated soldier named Jess Syward, who suffered traumatic brain injury in Iraq. He came home addicted to the painkiller OxyContin and alcohol and was recently charged in 2 cases of domestic abuse. Alvarez says he is precisely the kind of veteran who should be allowed to go through veterans court, but the district attorney denied that request.
Today, I sat in the courtroom with him where the DA said, no, you're going to prison. And this hero, this kid who saved people's lives, who served honorably, who, shed his blood for us, is going to spend 5 years in prison with no treatment. And when he comes out, I'm worried because will be 5 more years where his brain will receive no treatment.
District Attorney May says right now the Veterans Court can only handle a limited number of defendants at any given time, approximately 50 to 75, so he has to be selective with the cases he refers. The court is also limited by the fact that so far only one judge in Colorado Springs has agreed to participate. Judge Ron Crowder says it involves a lot of extra work.
I typically meet with everyone in a jury room, and we'll have the VA there, the probation department, defense counsel, the prosecution, myself, representatives from the program such as Carrie Bailey, and they'll discuss the case and they'll talk about how this soldier or former soldier is doing and what should we be doing. So I'm much better informed when they appear in front of me, and I have a dialogue with them. So I enjoy that kind of interaction, but it is much more time intensive.
Some critics say these courts give veterans special treatment not available to others. But Public Defender McAteer says that consideration is deserved.
They are different than the average Joe that comes through the court system in that many of them have sacrificed their own personal safety to protect my constitutional rights, to protect my rights. They fought in a war.
Do you feel you got a special deal?
No, I don't feel I got a special deal. I feel I got a just deal. I think justice was served in this case. What they're doing is that they're recognizing that, with my past being, taken into consideration, that this incident would not have happened if I had not been serving the country. They can't erase what has happened to all of us, including myself, but they can go ahead and try to prevent things from happening in the future. And this is one of the ways of, getting to that resolution.
There is no data yet to tell whether this kind of court will achieve the overall goal of preventing future crimes. But the court in Buffalo has had 22 veterans graduate from its program, and so far, none have committed new crimes.